Hey, everybody, and welcome to Adapt or Perish, episode 117, Angels in the Outfield. We'll be taking the field in a moment, but first, I've got some big news to tell you all about. Ari and I have been doing this show for 4.5 years with basically no break, save for the occasional rerun or late episode. That all changes after today, because I'm here to tell you that we are taking the summer off. Adapt or Perish will be back in the fall, our batteries will be full, and our opinions will be forceful and compelling. If you've got any episodes in the back catalog that you've been meaning to try, now's the time for it. As always, you can reach us at adaptorperishcast@gmail.com. We're on Patreon, and show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adaptorperishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapt or Perish, episode 117, Angels in the Outfield. Hello and welcome to Adapt or Perish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
I'm Ari Lipshaw, and today we will be discussing Angels in the Outfield.
Because here's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I looked back at all the episodes we've done and I said, hey, sweetie, you know the most fun we've ever had? Bad News Bears and Wings of Desire.
I'm not sure that's true.
It's not true, but for the purposes of this joke, then I said we could do something that does both of those things.
Oh, no.
Angels and baseball.
And baseball.
And I thought maybe we'll take 2-hour episodes that probably have the least amount of downloads and they would combine to make an incredibly popular episode with lots of downloads.
Yeah, I don't think this is like our core thing, but it was very fun. So if you are listening to the first 5 minutes of this going like, I don't know about Angels in the Outfield, but I'm going to give it a shot. Give it a shot.
Yeah.
And I guess if we haven't actually recorded the episode as I'm speaking, since we're on minute 1. So if it turns out bad, I guess I'll come and do a drop and say never mind. I have determined you should listen. It's good.
But yes, Angels in the Outfield. Here we are, talking about Angels in Outfields. Like, seriously, we just had to look back at all of the episodes we've already done, because I looked at you and I said, have we ever done sports episodes before? We're not sports people.
I was like, there's fencing in The Princess Bride.
There's fencing.
There's
yeah.
fighting in Narnia, and you were like, those are not sports.
That's not the same thing. There's Whack-Bat in the Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah.
But then there's Bad News Bears.
The original Freaky Friday had some kind of swimming event. Remember there was a swimming demonstration? She's such a good swimmer.
I'm positive it's soccer in the original.
Freaky Friday?
Yeah. With Jodie Foster? Isn't it soccer?
No, it was swimming.
It's definitely swimming?
Definitely swimming. Because
Okay.
remember the whole thing was they were out on the lake and like somebody was scared of water.
Okay. Yeah.
So like the
coming,
mom was scared, but the girl wasn't,
Yeah.
and they were switched bodies, and that hence the comedy.
It's coming back to me now. In The Parent Trap, there was fencing.
Was there
But, like-
fencing? There was archery.
No, when Lindsay Lohan
Oh,
was
right,
fencing
yes, there was
against herself.
fencing.
Remember? That's how
yep.
they meet?
No, I remember now. Okay. Anyway, we haven't done a ton of sports movies, is the point that you're making. But we have done Bad News Bears, which is a sports movie,
Uh-huh.
a baseball movie. In fact, there's so many baseball movies. Baseball. You were telling me the other day you had read somewhere that baseball was like the ultimate movie sport.
Oh, YouTube video essayist Patrick H. Willems, who I'm a fan of, did a whole video about, I'll link to it, about how he's basically making the case that baseball is the perfect movie sport. And I would have been inclined to agree with him before I saw his argument. And then I saw his argument, and he makes a very good argument. I would recommend watching it.
Is it because you don't need to like actually play a whole game of baseball to get like good close-up shots of like dramatic events happening? Like a basketball game, there needs to be like action happening all the time, but
Yeah.
baseball, like you can cut to the batter and then you can cut to the pitcher and then you can cut to someone catching a ball. Like you can make it dramatic without actually having to play baseball.
I mean, the thing about it is, like, if we're talking about his argument specifically, he was making a lot of different points.
Yeah.
I can say that for me, I think the thing I love most about baseball is that it's lots of nothing happening, punctuated by the action of a couple of people.
Yeah.
Because, like, football is a lot of nothing happening, but then everybody's doing everything.
Yeah.
And basketball is nothing's never happening.
Yeah. Something's always happening.
That's a better way to say that.
Yep.
Soccer is the same kind of thing.
Yes.
But with baseball, you have all this time to get to know people, and then suddenly, boom, action happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons why I love it. So, like, I love lots of baseball movies, but we certainly don't cover baseball a lot on the show.
No. we used to go to baseball games like as a kid.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I went to a baseball game. It's fun. It's fun to go to a baseball game.
Sure.
I mean, I've lived in Boston for like almost 10 years. I've never been to Fenway Park for anything.
Mhm.
Like not even a non-baseball event that they have there. They have concerts there and
Sure.
stuff sometimes. I've never ever been to Fenway Park. I've been to House of Blues across the street, and that's the closest I've been.
Baseball.
Yeah, so Angels in the Outfield. This should be, a compact one. I'm not going to say short, but compact because there's not a short story as
Nope.
far as we could tell. There's no original source material. There's a 1951 movie and then a 1994 movie with which many of us may be familiar.
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with it, but you think you are, you might be one of the people who's thinking of like Rookie of the Year.
I was thinking
or
of Rookie
something
of
like
the Year
that.
for sure. Yeah. Because when we were watching it, I was like, I don't think I saw this in the theater. I think I saw Rookie of the Year in the theater, and I got confused with Angels in the Outfield.
Mhm.
Because I'm sure I had seen it before. There were some things that were slightly familiar, but definitely hadn't seen it as much as like the other kids baseball movies of the 90s, of which there are many. Obviously, The Sandlot being the best one.
Okay.
Well, yeah, what is it? Sandlot, Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield.
No, actually, you're right. I'm sorry. I felt like I didn't want to agree, but then I actually thought about it. And now I do agree.
Yes.
I think Sandlot is the best one.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
there it is.
The other thing that happened when we were doing this is I thought this will be an easy one because we're watching an original movie, which we can rent, and a Disney movie, which of course, will be on Disney Plus. Turns out this might not have been the best one to pick because you can't watch the 1994 one. It's like not streaming anywhere.
Like Disney has chosen to exclude it
I
for
don't-
reasons best known to themselves.
I don't understand.
From Disney Plus.
But I do think we should probably put the Disney one aside for a moment and we should go back to 1951
Yep.
to talk about the original movie, Angels in the Outfield.
Yes.
I said to you beforehand, I got to get a back of the box. And so I did one of the things I normally do, especially for a movie, is I go to Amazon.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to buy a movie, buy a disc or you're going to rent it, a lot of people go to Amazon and they always have a plot synopsis. And I thought that's a great way to do it. So I found the one on Amazon. I would like to read it right now. And then I have a question for you. It would take a miracle for the Pittsburgh Pirates baseball team to win the pennant. But when a young girl prays for just such a miracle, her beloved team begins to win. I have a question.
Yes.
Do you see any problems with that synopsis for the 1951 movie Angels in the Outfield?
I do.
What's that?
It is not the plot of the 1951 movie Angels in the Outfield. It is the plot of the 1994 movie Angels in the Outfield with the gender switched of
Right?
the child.
I just imagine that someone knows the new one and was going through like someone just pushing buttons, going through writing these synopses for things. And it's like, okay, I did the one for the 94 one. I got to do the one for the 1951 version. I never seen it. I don't know anything about it. They have to be the same movie. Oh, I see that there's a little girl in it instead of a little boy.
Yes.
So clearly it must be the same thing.
It's not.
That's not what happens.
Not even close. Not even a little.
But we'll talk about what actually happens in the movie. I mean, do you want to do the quick version? What's the quick version of Angels in the Outfield?
Okay. There is a baseball team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're not very good at baseball.
The quick version.
This is, you're going to get what you're going to get.
Fair enough.
The manager is mean and yells at people, and then one day he is out in the outfield and he hears the voices of angels, and they're telling him, if you're a nicer person, we will help you win. And a little girl notices the angels. She's the only one who can see them. And hijinks ensue, and they win the pennant with the help of the angels. And the little girl gets adopted happily ever after the end.
Yep, the Angels help them cheat
Yes.
to be good at baseball.
Well, to be fair, in fairness, we don't know what the angels are doing because in a departure from the 1994 movie, this is, I think, the biggest difference. Can
you call it a departure from the remake?
I'm just saying, like, I would say this is one of the biggest differences. The angels, well, there's a lot of differences, but the angels are not visible to anyone throughout the entire movie. So we don't know if the angels are actually physically helping the baseball players or if they're just sort of inspiring them spiritually.
Yeah.
Because that could be. They're not necessarily cheating.
I mean, I feel like my response to that would be yes. The doctors who injected Lance Armstrong with his performance-enhancing drugs weren't themselves also pushing the pedals with their legs.
Sure.
But they were providing him with something that would allow him to do better.
Yeah.
Unnaturally.
I guess. But what I'm saying is if they had just whispered in his ear, you can do it. You're going to do a really good job today. Like, that's not illegal.
No, that's not illegal.
That would have been permitted.
If that's all they were doing.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, you're right.
But you don't know that that's what the Angels weren't doing.
We don't know that that's what they weren't doing.
That's all I'm saying.
I didn't think you were gonna, like, A of all, I didn't think you were gonna leap to the Pirates' defense. But B of all, I should have expected, but didn't expect you to give such a cogent, well-reasoned argument for why it's fine. I mean, here's the, like, if there were a hearing about this, I would want you defending the Pirates. That's all I'm saying. If there were a hearing, not that there would be in a movie like this.
Amazingly, you don't have far to travel to find a hearing because there is a baseball hearing.
Why is there a baseball hearing in this movie about angels?
I, honest to God, don't know.
Okay, well, maybe we'll get to that.
Can you give people some background information on this movie, and then I will do the long plot?
Definitely. There isn't a lot that I have, but it was directed by Clarence Brown. It was written by Dorothy Kingsley and George Wells from a story by Richard Conlon. The only thing of note about any of that I could really find that I think our audience would be interested in or that you would be interested in, does the name Dorothy Kingsley sound familiar to you?
No.
Okay, she co-wrote Valley of the Dolls, 1967.
Well, that's amazing.
I mean,
that's just amazing.
There you go.
When you say a story, do you mean like a story in the sense that a movie, like he
Yeah.
came up with a plot, not
Right.
like he wrote a short story that we couldn't find? Or
Yeah,
anything like that?
like in modern times, you would see it as story by
Yeah,
someone,
yeah.
screenplay by someone. But yeah,
It was his idea.
way back when you would see like based on a story by,
Right.
even though they also like work for the studio.
Right.
They just didn't write the screenplay. It does star Paul Douglas as Guffey McGovern, who is the general manager of the Pirates.
Absolute dead ringer for Jerry Orbach.
I can see it.
Like amazingly
Mhm.
strange.
Janet Leigh as
Mhm.
Jennifer Page.
Yep. The intrepid reporter.
Right, if
The
you've
intrepid girl reporter.
and if you've only seen the remake, you might wonder, Intrepid Girl Reporter, what are they talking about? No, she's like the main character at the beginning of this movie.
Yep.
She is our narrator
Yep.
at the beginning of this movie. And those are the big people in this.
Yes, and there's a kid and a nun.
Yeah,
it's
but
fine.
the kid's kind of a minor part.
Yeah.
The kid becomes more major as time goes on, but the kid doesn't really have much to do with what happens.
The backup nun we have seen in a number of other things.
Mhm.
She was in It's a Wonderful Life, and
You're talking about Ellen Corby?
yeah, and I think she was in Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Now that I think about it, I
Mm.
think she was in a number of episodes of that. Anyway,
Gotcha.
okay, we start off from the point of view of Janet Leigh, Jenny, our intrepid girl reporter, and she is a reporter. She has a job, which is very cool, and she's normally in charge of like the household tips section. So that becomes like a running thing whenever someone throughout the movie, if there's like a stain or like, someone needs to eat something in particular, she has advice. She has advice for that person.
Right.
But she's been sent on assignment to watch a baseball game to get like the women's view of the baseball game. A little bit weird. And she goes to this baseball game and she notices that the manager, who I was confused, as you recall, I asked you, what is the difference between a coach and a manager?
Mhm.
And you
I readily had the information in my head.
looked it up.
I had
And
to look it up just to remind myself a little bit.
because I said, is it a coach? Like, what is it? And apparently in baseball, everyone knows this apparently except me.
I like that you started with apparently.
It's just as simple as
A lot of people don't know this.
A lot of people don't know this. In baseball, the head coach is often referred to as the manager and is the head coach of the overarching team. And then there's lots of other like assistant coaches that are more specialized. Like you have your batting coach or your throwing coach or your catching coach.
But then you
whatever.
have the general manager at the top.
Yeah, and then you have like the owner of the team, which
Mhm.
is not the same. Okay, so the field manager, right? Like he's the head coach because he's not the general manager.
I mean, you keep using the term head coach.
Yeah.
Seems to not be relevant in this context.
He's the only coach. There's no other coach. And she notices that A, the Pittsburgh Pirates don't play baseball so good, and B, they seem to be very cowed and bullied by this guy that's like constantly screaming and swearing at them and is mean. And
We assume he's swearing.
yeah, it's sort of bleeped in a funny 1950s way.
Because of the Hays Code, there could be no real swearing.
Right. And then she goes back to try to get an interview with him, like outside the locker room, and he's swearing so much that it like scares her away and she clutches her pearls and she goes back to the newsroom and her editor's like, yeah, write the story about how much you hate this guy. That's fine. So she does do that. And then like she's out to dinner with her gay best friend, which is fun. And they happen to run into him, to Guffey McGovern, and she goes up to him and apologizes for the story, and he's like, it's fine. People said worse. I don't care. I'm trying to remember. I don't quite remember how they get from the restaurant like back to his apartment. They don't, right?
They
like,
don't.
They don't at that time.
No.
They just have this conversation.
Yeah. Like, she doesn't come back until, like, they start winning.
Right. So then, I don't know, the next day or next week,
Well,
whatever.
the other thing that happens that night is he punches a guy in the face.
Oh, right. So the sort of antagonist / villain of the piece is the sports journalist,
Fred Bales.
Who that's
Keenan Wynn.
Keenan Wynn.
Who I'm like hoping for I'm waiting for the day that he becomes friend of the pod, but this is only number 2.
Right.
I don't know if you saw me on my phone a minute ago, but I was checking to see how many movies he was in that we watched. He was in The Absent-Minded Professor, the original one, and he's in this.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see him in more things because I love Keenan Wynn.
Yeah. This thing about being friend of the pod after being on 3 movies is something we just came up with recently, so don't worry if you've like missed the setting in stone of the definition of friend of the pod. It's something we've sort of been workshopping. We've decided you have to be in 3 movies to be friend of the pod, but not Charlton Heston. He will never be friend of the pod. He's the exception that proves the rule. So Keenan Wynn is the sports writer, and he has his like radio show, and he also like announces the games. But we find out at the very beginning that Guffey got him fired from announcing the games. So he's got it in for Guffey for getting him fired from like one of his multiple sports commentary jobs. You know,
Yeah, this guy's fine.
He's fine. That's the thing. So anyway, they have this confrontation in a restaurant, and Guffey punches him in the face, and he's all bruised, and he's out to kind of get Guffey.
Yeah. I don't know what it was that hit me at the time, but like this really it just demonstrates to me so much how times have changed, that like assault is treated in such a funny way in this movie. Like, it comes up again in the remake. There is some assault, but it seems to be a little more serious in the new one.
Yeah.
And it certainly would be more serious now
Yeah.
than it was then. But back, like, in this movie, it's like, oh no, assault. Like, you can't have him actually swear, but we can have him assaulting people.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
It's totally fine. So then the next big beat is when he actually hears the angel, right?
Right.
So then it's nighttime, and we see Guffey. He's out on the baseball diamond. He's lost something. He's looking for his lucky coin. He can't find it, and it's dark, and he's mad, and he's mad at the world. And he just hears this voice that's like, "Hey, Guffey, I think you should swear not so much." And Guffey's like,
Fuck you.
Fuck you, I guess. What are you? And the voice says, I am an angel.
I like how ethereal you're presenting it, but really the guy just sounds like...
He just sounds like a guy.
Look, Dick, I'm an angel.
Yeah.
And you need to stop fucking around.
Yeah. Specifically swearing. He says he has to stop swearing.
Yeah.
He says...
Stop abusing people.
We don't like the way that you conduct yourself. And we, in exchange for you being a better person, maybe we'll do something for you. And he's like, someone's playing a trick on me. Someone's talking through the loudspeaker. And the angel's like, nope, this is not the case. I am an angel, in fact. And then Guffey's lucky coin just drops into his hand, and the scene concludes. And he's like, well, that was weird. But then the next day, here we are at the baseball game, and he starts to swear and yell at someone, and at the umpire, I think, and like thinks better of it, and is like, I think you're doing a great job, and I'm gonna go back to my seat. And everyone's like, that's weird. That was a weird thing for Guffey to do. But witnessing this baseball game is a large group of cute as a button little orphan children, little orphan girls, and some nuns. And one of them, the best orphan, clearly, who the nun clearly likes her best, I would say. She sees an angel in the outfield. And she's like, I see an angel. And the nun is like, do not. No one else can see it. And you've been in the sun too long. And she's like, no, I see it. And of course, they happen to be sitting like right behind the journalist box. So all the journalists hear her like, I see an angel. And then they win the game. And so this becomes a very interesting thing. How does Guffey come to hear of it? It's in the newspaper, right?
I feel like here's the thing about the whole middle section of this movie.
It's a little bit convoluted.
Things happen very fast.
Yes.
No, it's not that it's convoluted. It's just that stuff happens really quickly. We see them at a game doing well. Then we see them at another game doing well. And like the orphans are there. I'm not even sure the orphans were there at the first game.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter.
They're there early on.
So I'll try to speed it up a little bit. This movie truly does not deserve the time I'm spending.
Even though, like, I don't even think we've said it at this point.
It's really good.
This is a fun movie.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's all this stuff going on, and the orphan like the things that she's been saying. It's in the paper, and the journalists all show up at the
Well, it's
orphan's
'cause
home to talk to the
what's her name?
nun.
Jenny wrote.
Jenny wrote a piece and got all this publicity going. And then Jenny goes to the nun and is like, hey, what is the orphan's name? I keep just calling her the orphan. She has a name.
Her name is Bridget.
And she's like, hey, let me just take Bridget to the ball game. She won't see any angels because that's crazy. And I'll just write a piece about how it was all a mistake, which is a weird thing for her to do. A weird thing to assume that she's just going to take her to the baseball game and she just won't see angels and everything will be okay. But in fact, she does see angels. And she's like, they're helping the team. They're throwing the ball. They're doing stuff. And everybody goes crazy again. And so now Guffey is forming a relationship with both Janet Leigh, Jenny, and the little girl, Bridget.
Like, it's really sweet. He goes to the orphanage and says to them, like, hey, I want to talk to this girl who was in the paper.
Yeah.
And they all think that he's going to adopt her.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got to talk to you about the Angels kid.
And it's really funny because at the beginning of the movie, there's sort of the briefest of interactions between Guffey and Jenny. And I was like, oh, I think they're going to fall in love. And you were like, no. She's going to fall in love with one of the hot young baseball players.
That was my assumption.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. And the reason that I don't think so is because I don't think any of the baseball players are major characters, except for the one old guy. Like there's a whole storyline with like, he's past his prime and Guffey's always making fun of him and is mean to him and he's old and he's not good for nothing anymore. Can't pitch, can't throw. I don't know what he's still doing there.
Yeah,
He's just over the hill.
Something's going to come up later that I think is going to prove that if I have any intuition about what's going to happen in a movie, my intuition is clearly based on things that I experienced in the 80s and 90s growing up than things in the 50s.
Yes.
Because I was totally wrong about this.
Yes, but you were right about something in the other movie.
In a shocking and fun way.
Yes. Anyway, so he's forming this relationship and with her and with the kid, and they're getting closer and closer, and the commissioner of baseball comes to town, and there's a trial.
Yeah, so you would think there's not going to be any conflict because the Angels are helping the Pirates win.
And in fact, at one point, I literally said, I like a movie like this where there's no antagonist and no conflict. And then there immediately became conflict because Keenan Wynn showed up and was like, this guy needs to be fired because he's telling everyone that angels are helping the team and that makes him bad and crazy, and we need to have this sort of sanity trial. It's kind of like the trial. It reminded me of the trial at the end of Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah.
Where they put Santa on trial to prove that he's Santa.
Well, like, so they have this hearing with, as you say, the commissioner of baseball shows up, and it's the day of the final, the day of the big game.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen before that. So the commissioner is there, and they're holding court, and I don't understand why Keenan Wynn, why this character is the prosecution.
Yes, he's acting as the prosecution. I wrote down, why is the sports writer the lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't quite understand what the mechanism is here. Like, is he on trial for his job? Are they going to put him in a home? Like, what is going to happen if he, and I'm doing air quotes here, loses the trial?
Yeah.
I mean, I assume he'll be removed from his position.
That's I think all they can do.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to something that's really important because one of the things they do, kind of like in Miracle on 34th Street, where they bring in, remember their gotcha moment with all the letters?
Yep.
Yeah, because they're like, the United States Postal Service thinks this guy is Santa, so what are you going to say? He's going to say a federal agency, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
In this one, they bring in this in
it's like
some
the setup
ways,
of a joke.
Like, in some ways, this is the best scene in the movie, and in some ways, this is the dumbest scene in the movie.
Yeah.
But as you say, a
preacher, a rabbi, and a priest walk into a courtroom.
So they literally bring in a Protestant, they bring in a rabbi, and they bring in a Catholic priest to talk about angels.
Yes.
And this is part of the defense.
Yeah.
That they bring them in.
Yes.
And I just feel like they start talking about how, like, well, you can't say there aren't angels, and here all the evidence. Here's all the evidence of angels appearing, in the Bible, both Old Testament and New.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, these three guys are real sweet with each other.
They're adorable. I said to you, I have never seen a rabbi in a movie that was made prior to the 90s, I think. And I was pretty impressed by the rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
A, being a rabbi that people were looking to for knowledge and wisdom, and B, not being like a Jewish stereotype of anything
like
at all.
Even a little.
I was very, very impressed that they didn't have this guy in like a long beard and like some kind of robe. It was great.
Yeah.
It was really progressive for 1951, and I was impressed.
However,
this was stupid as heck.
because I could imagine any commissioner of baseball presiding over this hearing would immediately say, hang on a second. My reasons for being here and my reasons for holding this hearing have to do with a lot of things related to this man, Guffey McGovern, and his fitness for the job. But I'll tell you one thing that none of what I'm deciding hinges on. Whether angels are real.
Right.
That is not within the purview of this quote-unquote court.
Which is the difference between that and the Miracle on 34th Street trial, because they literally were trying to prove, is Santa real? And I think someone just got confused about what they were the point they were trying to make. Anyway.
I could see him just saying, you guys got to get out of here. This is not what we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't want this.
Yeah. Well, and then at one point, they were like, but we have an independent witness. This little girl has seen the angels, because she's the only one at this point still who's seen them. And there's this Keenan Wynn gets this aha moment, and he's like, aha, but she's biased because you've promised to adopt her. Haven't you been down to the orphans court inquiring about her? And then I got into this whole line of thinking about what is the orphans court and what do they do? I mean, I assume it's family court, and they used to call it the orphans court because they did orphan stuff.
We're making assumptions about America 70 years ago.
I just enjoyed the phrase, you've been down to the orphans court to ask about her.
Can I give a note that I forgot to give before when it was more relevant?
Yes.
When Guffey goes to the orphanage, do you remember what he says to the nun? He doesn't say, I need to talk to the little girl who is quoted in the paper as seeing angels. I'm Guffey McGovern, the general manager of the Pirates.
Yeah.
Can I speak to that little girl? He doesn't say that. Do you remember what he does say?
Doesn't he say
I need a little girl?
Yeah.
Just walks right in and announces, I need a little girl. And they are falling over themselves to get him a little girl.
They think he's going to adopt a little girl.
And they bring him into the classroom where all the little girls are sitting, and he goes, I think it's that one.
It's very sad.
Please continue.
Oh, man.
So the hearing happens.
So this hearing happens, and he's like, not guilty. And everyone's like, guilty of what? And why are we here? And what's happening? And there's this very cute scene where the priest and the rabbi and the preacher are like, we all have baseball tickets. Should we all go sit together? Yeah, let's go. So they all go to the game. And
he punches the broadcaster again.
Yes, because he insults the little girl, right?
I think so.
He says something nasty.
Just generally a dick, and the guy punches him again.
Yeah.
Because again, this movie is.
But he's been nice up to this point.
He's
been treating people kindly, and speaking to them nicely, and this is his journey, right? Not only has everyone realized that he's a good person, he has realized himself that he's a good person,
right?
Which is something he didn't know before.
I mean, it's one of the things I think we left out at the beginning, that they do a really good job at the beginning of the movie of setting up the fact that all of Pittsburgh is against this guy.
Yeah, everyone hates him.
Everyone hates him. There's that beautiful moment where we mentioned the nuns. So Sister Edwitha is the head. She's the Mother Superior.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just this beautiful scene where she's talking to him and just starts going into now, in the game the other day, you set this guy up, and you really shouldn't have because of this, and this, and his injury. You should have set this other guy up. And it was kind of my favorite moment in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it was just a really beautiful little thing. The whole city knows who he is, kind of hates him, thinks he's doing a bad job, and thinks they could do better. And they do a really good job of showing that.
Yeah. So, as might be expected, the Pirates do a really good job at the baseball game, and they win the baseball game. And Guffey's life is forever improved because not only have his beloved Pirates won the game, but he has won the girl, Janet Leigh, and they are to be married, and they are going to adopt this little girl, Bridget, and live together as a family happily ever after.
It's all kind of implied.
Yes.
There's definitely a line where they say, adoption's very hard, if for an unmarried person.
Right. And she's like, well...
it's not like he proposes.
Right.
Right?
But they're, together hugging at the end.
At the end, looking out over the baseball field.
Yes.
And there's this beautiful Field of Dreams moment at the end where, because all the angels, it's clear that they were all ball players.
Oh, yes. And also... we forgot to mention the old guy, the old pitcher that he lets play.
Oh, yeah.
That he lets play at the end, and everyone's like, take him out. And he's like, no, he can do it. And he does do it.
With the help of the angels.
With the help of the angels. The angels have said, sort of casually to Guffey, oh, he'll be joining us soon.
Yeah. Yeah, we're recruiting him in 6 months.
Yeah. So, Guffey knows this man is dying, and he does not look well. But yeah, we get this sort of, the angels, again, not visible, just their voices, but as you were mentioning,
Yeah.
sort of this Field of Dreams moment.
Yeah, the movie ends with all of them clearly playing a game of ball on the field, but we
Yes.
see nothing.
It's very sweet.
It's very sweet. It's a really beautiful moment. One quick thing about the Angels, that angel that we hear the entire time is uncredited in the movie, but it's James Whitmore,
okay.
who I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to say to an entire generation, he is Brooks from Shawshank Redemption.
Sure.
Of Brooks Was
Of
Here
Brooks
fame.
was here, yeah. Yes.
And he's very good.
Yes.
Also, can I mention some other people who are in this movie?
Yeah.
Bing Crosby, Ty Cobb, and Joe DiMaggio.
As themselves.
All as themselves. Because it's this whole section in the middle where they're like, the news is interviewing people about, hey, these pirates are doing really, really good. And so they interview Ty Cobb, Joe DiMaggio. Like, that makes sense. And then they interview Bing Crosby. Now, one of these things is not like the other. Do you know why they interviewed Bing Crosby?
No.
At the time, he was a 15% owner of the Pirates,
Okay.
of
that
the
makes
actual
sense.
team.
That makes sense.
It's actually really sweet. So, like, there's a thing at the beginning of the movie how they're in the credits about how they're very grateful to Pittsburgh for letting them shoot in Pittsburgh and letting them shoot at the field and letting them use the Pirates as the team,
Yeah.
even though they need everyone to know this could be any team in any ball club anywhere.
Yeah, they're
right?
like doesn't even need to be professional. It could
Yeah.
be any team.
But and also too, apparently the 1994 version, they had their premiere at the field in Pittsburgh. Not that field because it had been torn down at that point.
Well, of course.
But they had it premiere at the current field then of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
That's very
which
sweet.
is kind of sweet,
That's kind of
right?
sweet. Yeah.
I'm just looking at my notes and I want to make sure we mention a couple of things before we move on. Remember the Shakespeare gag?
Yeah.
Like, It worked. I thought it worked as like a setup and a punchline.
Yeah, well, it got set up a little bit because the angel was like, we have this beautiful English language. Think of Milton. Think of Shakespeare. They didn't use such dirty words as you. And you said to me, like, Shakespeare is pretty dirty. And I was like, no, you're right. And then there's a scene where he comes onto the mound and starts insulting the ump, but doing it in like Shakespearean insults, like thou varlet thou, like that type of thing.
Yeah,
And
there's like a scene in between where he's reading Shakespeare on the train, and
Yeah.
all the players are like, he's reading Shakespeare. What's he doing?
it's pretty funny.
Like, I didn't expect it to be the setup for a bigger joke, but as the setup for a bigger joke and then the gag, like, it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
I really liked that. This is the second time we've heard James Whitmore's voice without seeing his face.
Okay.
Because he did play one of the orangutans in Planet of the Apes.
Fantastic.
But this is the most important thing. There is a moment in the final game where I can't remember if the Pirates are the ones fielding or if they're the ones hitting, but there is a man running to first, and the ball gets thrown to the first baseman, and it's all visible.
Yep.
Beautiful 35 millimeter.
Yep.
The ball's thrown to the first baseman, who catches it, and then I'd say conservatively, 17 seconds later, the runner hits the base,
Yeah.
and the umpire
Goes
safe. And both of us, like, we're not baseball people, but both of us, I feel like, independently at that moment looked at each other and just went, he was so fucking out.
Yeah.
What's happening?
It's pretty funny.
It was just a beautiful thing to happen at the end of the movie, but like, fun movie.
Yeah, no, it was really fun, and I think I was saying this more around the 1994 one, but sort of to the last point you just made. Like, I feel like if I'm watching a sports movie and my reaction is, well, no, that's not the rules. Is that the rules? I feel like I just have to trust that the baseball movie knows more about baseball than I do. But sometimes it is hard because sometimes stuff like that happens and you're just like, I don't think that's right somehow. I don't know. It's weird.
Yep.
Yeah, it was good. And I enjoyed watching it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, you might ask yourself, it's weird that you'd have a movie called Angels in the Outfield and they decided to make it about the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's Pirates, not Angels.
Yeah.
Different thing.
Why wouldn't
Because there
they?
is a team called the Angels.
Yeah, why wouldn't they make it about the Los Angeles Angels? Now, I want to be totally clear, because if anyone's listening to this going like, yeah, I already see where you're going and I knew that already, I'm just going to say, I'm assuming that this is a generational kind of divide.
Yes.
I was one of these people who was kind of wondering why. What's the line from Mighty Wind that Fred Willard has about how many Supreme Court justices there are? I always thought there's 12 Supreme Court
Turns
justices.
out there's only 9.
Turns out there's only 9. That's kind of how I feel about many times that it turns out my ignorance has led me to an incorrect assumption.
Yeah.
Turns out there were no Los Angeles Angels in 1951 when this movie was made.
Amazing.
Because they were not founded until 1961.
Yeah.
And interesting things about the Angels. So they were founded in large part by Gene Autry,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the reasons why the owner of the Angels in the movie is like,
a cowboy.
kind of a cowboy.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all a
funny.
tribute to Gene Autry.
That's super funny because I thought that was a reference to George W. Bush owning a baseball team.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why would anyone in 1994 be making a movie about in any way referencing George W. Bush?
I don't know. That's funny though.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
You know that guy who was really unpopular and got voted out 2 years ago? He's got a son. But so that's one part of it. But also, this was a Disney movie. Walt Disney sat on like the board he was a part owner of the Angels originally.
Okay.
And at the time, much in the same way that Bing Crosby was a part owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates,
Yeah.
Walt Disney Studios, Walt Disney Pictures was a part owner of the Los Angeles Angels.
Right. Because they're in like Anaheim, right? Like
Yeah.
they're near Disneyland,
Mhm.
right? Is that not right?
No, it is right.
I don't know.
You're right.
I don't know much about either California or baseball.
No, that is correct.
Okay, that's great.
Yes.
And yeah, it just seems like an amazing coincidence that Disney got this property called Angels in the Outfield, and there was now a team called the Angels that's based in the same city as Disney. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy, right?
This had to have been in the works for a long time. And when I say in the works, I mean so many people casually had to mention to each other, do you remember that movie Angels in the Outfield?
We gotta do
We
it.
gotta do that at some point. Like this doesn't feel to me like an idea that anyone pitched like in 1991.
It just seems obvious. Like, obviously you have to do it.
Yeah, like this had to happen at some point. So it did.
Yeah, it did.
Finally came out in 1994, directed by William Deere, who I'm gonna say most importantly directed in 1987 Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh my God.
Which is an amazing movie.
Amazing.
You've seen it, right?
No.
It's very good.
Okay.
Written by Holly Goldberg Sloan, who until this point is probably most famous for writing the movie Made in America with
Mhm.
Ted Danson and Whoopi Goldberg.
Okay.
There's another movie that she not only wrote, but wrote and directed that is very well known on this show now. Would you like to tell everyone what it is?
I would like to give you the pleasure of announcing to our listeners what other movie she wrote and directed.
She wrote and directed Heidi Forepaws, the version of Heidi that's dogs.
That's so stupid.
I was so excited.
I can't believe it.
Just an amazing
That is
coincidence.
so strange.
So recently did we watch this movie. But anyway, written by Holly Goldberg Sloan. There are some people in this dang movie. I tell you what, folks.
Oscar winners, like, coming out your ears, man.
I mean, best as I can tell, 4 Oscars.
Okay.
I'll start with the big one.
Okay.
Matthew McConaughey is in this movie.
Yep.
Playing one of the angels.
Yep.
1994 Matthew McConaughey.
Yep.
So very baby-faced Matthew McConaughey.
Yep.
Oscar winner.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Brody is in this movie as one of the angels.
Oscar winner.
Oscar winner, even babier-faced Adrian Brody.
Right.
Like, literal baby
Yep.
Adrian Brody in this movie. I've never seen... Like, when I saw his name in the credits, I thought... Because the movie's about kids, right? I thought he was going to be like...
One of the kids.
Well, like a teen,
Right.
You know, like an older antagonist to one of the kids or something. Like, no, he is one of the players.
But he could have played. He was young enough that he could have played that. Like, he was
Exactly.
a young player. Like,
Uh-huh.
that. He was like the kid on the baseball team.
Mhm. Brenda Fricker is in this movie.
Yes.
Who I feel like I'm gonna let's throw 2 things out that people might know her from. Let's say cinephiles with taste. What are they gonna know about Brenda Fricker?
Well, I would like to reenact our dialogue from last night when we were watching the movie.
Yes.
You were like, Brenda Fricker. Brenda Fricker.
I know her.
How do I know her?
I know her name. I know that face. Why? What do I know her from?
Did you ever see My Left Foot?
No, I never saw My Left Foot.
Did you ever see Home Alone 2 Lost in New York?
Oh yeah, she's the pigeon lady from Home Alone 2: Lost in New York.
There you go.
Won the Oscar for I think Best Supporting Actress
For My Left Foot?
For My Left Foot.
Yeah, she's the mom.
Yeah. So that's 3 Oscars so far, and then Danny Glover plays George Knox, who is he's the manager of the Angels.
Yeah.
Never won an Oscar for acting, but he did this year win the Gene Hirschholt Humanitarian
Jesus
Award,
Christ.
which we just talked about.
Why does Heidi
in
keep
Heidi.
coming up? Oh my God.
I
Okay.
did. We should have done Heidi years ago.
Years
That's all
ago.
I'm saying.
All right.
So there are some bona fides in this movie. There is lots of people in this movie, and that's they're not even my favorite people in the movie because things have changed a little bit. I'm just going to read this again. It would take a miracle for the Pittsburgh Pirates baseball team to win the pennant, but when a young girl prays for just such a miracle, her beloved team begins to win. I'm going to change this up a little bit. It would take a miracle for the Los Angeles Angels baseball team to win the pennant, but when a young boy prays for just such a miracle, his beloved team begins to win.
That is what happens.
That is actually the plot
Yep.
of this whole thing. So we start with these little kids. Roger, and JP.
Yes.
Roger is played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yep.
JGL
doing an okay job.
Do-
He's fine. He's fine.
JGL's amazing in this.
He's okay.
He's one of the best child actors I've ever seen.
Okay.
I think his talent is palpable.
Okay.
I'm being fully serious right now. I think JGL's amazing in this movie.
Really?
He's so good.
Okay.
He was so good when he was a kid. He's so
Okay.
good now.
Fair enough.
Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. Keep going on.
And more importantly, Milton Davis Jr. plays JP, his cute little foster brother.
He was great.
He's amazing. But there's these two foster kids who are in short-term foster care, not
Right.
long-term care. And Maggie is the woman who runs the home, and that's Brenda Fricker.
The Irish woman who runs
Well,
the
I
home.
said this to you earlier today. Like, if you walked into this movie 5 minutes late and sat down and said, "What did I miss?"
Yeah.
And the person you were watching it with decided to mess with you and said, "Oh yeah, there's these two kids. They live in a foster home. That's the Irish lady who runs the foster home," and just kind of proceed on from there.
Yeah.
You kind of wouldn't question it.
I asked you. I said, "Is she supposed to be Irish, or is she doing a very bad job with the accent?"
Because Brenda Fricker, like, let's be clear, Irish.
She is Irish.
Right. Like, not only Irish, but very fine actor.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm sure, given the right preparation and the right support on set, would have delivered a fantastic American accent.
Sure. Who knows? Who can say? Didn't, though.
I always find... So for these movies, I always look through a few sources, and one of the things I always check, not because I take it as gospel, but because I feel like sometimes it opens up interesting avenues of research.
Yeah.
I like checking the IMDb trivia for these movies, which, like, 50% of the time, I'm sure they're bullshit. I'd like to read one piece of trivia for this movie that I read on IMDb. In the scene where George Knox and Maggie are waiting for Roger, Brenda Fricker's Irish accent slips for a brief second.
I mean, it's not brief, and it's not just in that scene. I mean, she's just straight doing her own accent 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Punctuated with an American accent.
punctuated with an American accent. Like, if you thought she was American trying to do an Irish accent, you would be
You'd
more...
say, good on her. She's doing a good
You would
job.
think she was doing a good job. It's wild, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of the worst accents I've ever heard in a movie. And I said to you, when she's doing the accent, it's not that bad. It's just that she's not doing it very much. And you were like, I literally think that's the definition of not doing a good job. Is that you can't maintain it for more than like a couple words at a time. And I don't mean to laugh at her or her performance. It's a fine performance, but someone did her dirty in this movie. She was not well served by whatever support she was given, or like they didn't give her enough takes to get it right, or whatever it was. She's supposed to be American. She is not sound good in the movie.
This ended up being a bit of a sticking point for us.
Yes.
Like, I kind of liked this movie at first. I was here for this movie. So, like, that opening scene where we have Roger and JP riding their bikes through LA, you know, going to their house, and they're riding past the stadium, and they're talking about everything. And so much good exposition is done in that scene.
They did a good job with the exposition there.
Yeah, like, we find out everything we need to know. We find out that, like, both of them have... So, wait, Roger's mom is in heaven.
Roger's mom is in heaven.
Where's JP's... His mom is in heaven too? Or is both his parents?
His parents are in heaven.
Yeah. Like, more importantly...
Roger's dad is not in heaven.
No.
That's the important point.
But most importantly, JP and Roger have a conversation about how they have parents who are in heaven.
Right.
Which is setting up so many things. It's setting up who they are. It's setting up what their situation is. It's also setting up being in heaven is something that's important to this movie.
Sure.
Right? And then they get back, and Brenda Fricker's like, you have to go inside because there's this man who wants to see you. And he goes inside, and there's, like, baby-faced Dermot Mulroney. And, like, you even said, like, who is that? Who is that? I know this face.
He looked familiar.
So Dermot Mulroney's sitting there smoking a cigarette with his leather jacket on. And he's like, I know this. I know I said that I was it's his dad. And he said, I know I said I was going to be here. The next time I came, it was going to be to take you.
But just so you know, I'm not.
Just so you know, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. And he says, what are the odds that we're ever going to be a family again? And he says to him, and I'm paraphrasing, the odds of that are about as good as the Angels winning the pennant, because of course that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And he leaves. And then that night, Roger looks up at the stars and says, God, if there is a God, he or she. It's very 90s.
Yeah.
Like, there definitely is a line about how,
there's some political correctness.
if you're a man or if you're a woman.
Yeah.
Because, of course, there's only two genders.
the two genders, God and God.
The two genders. It would be really great if the Angels could win the pennant, because then my dad will be a family. And this is one of those moments where I was proud of myself for having some intuition about these movies. Because what was the conversation we had about this?
You said his dad's never coming back.
Yeah, because I'd never seen this.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel like I'd never seen this
And
movie.
I said, you don't think there's going to be like a 90s happy ending that like the dad, because I feel like, I feel like that's more 90s, that like the dad comes back and they have a reconciliation, and you were and that the dad not coming back and him having to kind of make that emotional journey that he's not coming back is more like today. And you were like, that dad's not coming back.
Lo and behold, that dad does not come back.
Not
Not only that, there's actually a scene where the dad looks him dead in the eye and says, "I'm signing you away to the state."
Yeah, and then Brendan Fraser's like, Sharon Bigara.
He fucks off to his motorcycle and gets out of there. I don't even think he rides a motorcycle, but he
No.
looks like he should. So anyway, Dermot Mulroney's in two scenes in this movie. You asked me, you're like, what's Dermot Mulroney known for? And I said he's known for not being Dylan McDermott.
And I was like, aha, that's the confusion that I had.
So he prays, and then they have Kids Day at the field.
Right.
And all the kids go to the field.
All the foster kids.
Yep.
In the bus.
And JP and Roger sit next to this guy. I don't even know the guy's name, but he's the fan that's in the entire movie.
He's in every scene.
And he's like,
He's just a big dude with he's wearing a tank top and he's hairy.
Yeah.
And he's just a distinctive looking person.
I'm going to say I didn't have a problem with this guy in the movie.
No.
He was fine.
And I also thought that the Pine Sol lady was going to have a bigger part than she did. I thought maybe she was an angel.
Here's the thing. As you say, not only are they sitting next to this guy, they are sitting in front of Diane Amos, the Pine Sol lady. We had a whole... If you'd been sitting in the room, this is what you would have heard.
Is it the Palmolive lady?
Hang on, let me look it up really quick. Looking.
I'm looking too. I'm just getting
No,
something
no.
from the 50s.
No,
I don't know.
here's what it is. She's the...
Pine Sol!
It was kind of fun for these two 90s kids over here.
Yep.
So then suddenly, what does Roger see?
An angel.
An angel. Now, he sees it, and we see it.
Mm-hmm.
Because this was 1994. And Disney said, we have computers.
Can't have invisible angels.
Nope.
No heck.
That's not what gets butts in seats.
Heck no.
No, we got to show some really weird, off-putting, shimmery angels.
Plus Christopher Lloyd.
Well, yeah, so there's that too. So we see angels, and in this one, basically their entire job is giving massages to the players.
Yeah.
Like, that's what tells Roger that something is going to happen, is that he looks over and there's an angel giving a back massage, giving like a shoulder rub to one of the players.
To Adrian Brody.
At one point, it's Adrian Brody.
Right.
I don't even think it's Adrian Brody at the beginning.
You don't think so? Okay.
No, because it's not Adrian Brody at the beginning, because it's not until he has a relationship with Knox that he tells him it's Adrian Brody.
Right. That's right.
So he sees an angel, and then Christopher Lloyd shows up. And Christopher Lloyd plays Al. I found out something, again, from the IMDb trivia. I'm just going to go ahead and say I've decided to treat this as fact because it sounds plausible. Apparently, Christopher Lloyd was not the first choice for this role. Apparently, it was Leslie Nielsen, which I can see.
Yeah.
Like, I can actually see that more than Christopher Lloyd for some reason.
Sure.
Because it's a pretty minor role.
Yeah, it's not a big part.
Al's only in a couple of things.
And it's not like he like goes on a journey or has any kind of emotional. He's just like a goofy angel from beginning to end.
Yeah. And like, I actually think Christopher Lloyd has more to deliver than just that.
Yeah.
Like, Christopher Lloyd has range as a comedic actor. But then you take someone like Leslie Nielsen, who's also fantastic, but I think within a more limited range.
Sure.
Like, that makes sense to me. According to the internet,
yes,
he was too busy doing Naked Gun 33 1/3.
Okay.
So he couldn't do this movie.
Fair enough.
Then Tony Danza signed on.
Okay.
And he plays the old pitcher.
Yes.
The one who's too old to do any of this
He's
stuff.
got a shoulder injury that makes him cough.
I'll let you get to that. So Tony Danza signed on, and then apparently he said, I worked with Christopher Lloyd on Taxi. He'd be great for this. And he convinced him to sign on. So this was them co-starring together for, I think, the first time since Taxi. And as a fan of Taxi, the reason I'm even talking about this is because I want it to be true because it delights me.
Yeah.
So Christopher Lloyd plays an angel. He's in 3 scenes, 4 scenes,
really
something like that. And like he's just explaining rules.
Yeah, he's like, just so you know, you can't see me. And
you're the only one who can see me.
You're the only one who can see me, and
no one else can see me.
You can't see me or hear me, and you can't tell anyone about angels, even though he's already told like half the world about the angels. You should have done that, but it doesn't matter. Like, he's not in trouble or anything. You didn't know, but know for next time. Like, there's no stakes at all.
Yep.
Yeah, so Tony Danza is the one that he's got like a bad shoulder, so we see him like icing his shoulder and like in the hot bathtub and everything. And at one point he kind of gets into a little kerfuffle with Danny Glover, and he gets a little angry, and it makes him cough, like he starts to cough, and I swear to God, I thought I was going to see blood on the handkerchief.
Right.
And I was like, but all we know about him is that he has a bad shoulder. Why is the bad shoulder making him cough? And then it turns out at the end, the angel's like, yeah, he's got lung cancer. He shouldn't have done all that smoking.
Yeah.
A very 90s message.
Well, and also, too, literally 30 seconds before that, I said to you, because it's so close to the end,
Yeah.
I was like, well, at least it seems like Tony Danza is going to survive this.
And
And then Christopher Lloyd's talking to JGL and says the thing about how, 6 months he's going to be dead.
He's going to be with us. Yeah, he's going to be in the clouds with the angels. Well, what was the other thing that you were like?
No, so here's what happens earlier. We haven't even really talked about Knox at all. About
we'll
Danny
get to
Glover.
it. We'll get to it.
But one of the things we kind of find out is that he has a really bad relationship with Ranch Wilder.
The voice of the angels.
Right? He's that Keenan Wynn sportscaster character.
Yes.
And they have a history. They played in the minors against each other. And one of the things we find out is that he messed up Knox's knee.
He spiked him
when he was sliding into home or whatever, whichever base it was in the context of the story.
Yep.
And he messed up his knee and ruined his career. And now he's a manager. He's got a terrible career now, but he was never a player.
Right.
Which is clearly more important. And J.O. Sanders is this actor who's great at playing characters like this. He's a wonderful, hey, it's that guy.
Yeah.
They have their scene where he's interviewing him on the field and being a real dick to Knox, and Knox punches him in the face.
Yep.
On television, because we need to have that kind of casual violence in these types of movies, for kids.
Mm-hmm. Toxic masculinity.
Right, being what it is. So there is a scene later where they're in the locker room, and this is after Knox has started to form a relationship with Roger. Can I take a quick sidebar to my point?
Yes.
One of the things we were interested in is how are they going to translate the original characters to this one? Because the original one has Jenny.
Yes. Newspaper reporter.
And then there's the little girl, and then there's Guffey.
Right.
I think you said at one point, is Brenda Fricker the romantic lead? Is she going to end up with Danny Glover?
And for a minute, I thought she was, because it seemed like she had a story. Because there was this, he comes to the house, Danny Glover comes to the house to invite the kids to go to the baseball game, because he's like, they're a good luck charm. Even if they're not seeing angels, I want them to come to the game.
And super quick, just for context, after something amazing happened during a game where the Angels lifted up Matthew McConaughey and he was able to catch a ball in the outfield that was incredible.
Yes.
And then afterwards, JGL gets a photo op with Knox and he says to him, he made the catch because the Angels lifted him up.
Right.
And you talk to him and he'll tell you. And he does talk to him. And he's like, I don't know what happened. It was really weird. I felt like I was weightless. Things were holding me up by my arms. And then he goes and finds JGL, and that's how their relationship starts. For context.
Right. And so he invites him to the baseball game, and Brenda Fricker is like, Sharon Bigar, I don't go to baseball games, but you can go. It's fine. And I thought there was going to be a plot line about why she doesn't go to baseball games, that some terrible thing had happened, and that she and Danny Glover were going to connect over whatever the thing was. This did not happen. It was not even a thing at all. So anyway.
And if she had just said, I don't like baseball. I don't like it. I don't like going to the games. I don't like the smell, and I don't like hot dogs. If she had just said that, we wouldn't have thought that there was a story.
We thought there was a story.
But the way she was bringing all of her Oscar-winning acting talent to, I don't go to baseball games.
Yeah.
There has to be something. No, there was nothing there.
So anyway, what's your point?
So my point is, we thought she might be the Jenny part,
right,
but she isn't. And the thing that I think we kind of discovered through it is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the Janet Leigh part.
Right.
And JP, his little foster companion, he's the orphan girl from the first one.
Right.
Because the whole thing in the original is that the dynamic in the original is all between Jenny and Guffey.
Right.
They have the dynamic. And the orphan girl, she's just kind of there. And her only job is to be sweet.
Yes.
She doesn't really have any role other than that. And in this one, JP's whole role is just be cute.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Which he does admirably.
Oh, he's incredibly well. Roger is the one who has to form a relationship with Knox.
Yeah.
They have to get to know each other, and they have to get to like each other, and Knox has to want to bring him into his life later on. They really have an arc over the course of it. So really, I realize, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the Jenny character.
Yeah.
He just also happens to be the one who can see angels.
Yeah.
And JP is basically just Bridget from the original.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jenny does not appear in this.
Does not appear.
At all. So anyway, that's what my point was.
Yes.
Getting back to Ranch Wilder. There's a scene in the locker room after one of the winning games, and Roger and JP are over at the side because now Knox has them come to all the games so that Roger can tell him when there's angels on the field. There's a scene where Roger says there were angels in the outfield and in the infield.
And you're like, why would you say that? And
Why
I was like,
would you say it
obviously
that
because you
way?
have to get the title line into the movie.
This is so stupid. So he's talking to them, and Ranch is looking over at them. And I said to you, here's what I don't want to see happen in this. He's going to be the bad guy, and he's going to see this conversation, and he's going to say something like, something's going on. And my question for you is this. Did he actually say something's going on in the movie while I said that, or immediately after?
Immediately after. You said, here, you say that again, and I'll be Ranch Wilder on the TV.
I just feel like this guy's gonna. I don't want him to be the bad guy, but I feel like he's gonna look at this and he's just gonna say something really shitty, like something's going on.
Something's going on.
Holy shit! It was. I just felt so validated because I had not seen what was coming in the 1951 version.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying, if I have gained any kind of second sense about these types of movies, about 90s movies, I know what they're gonna do.
So this all comes to a head with, again, a baseball trial.
Mm-hmm.
At which
it's kind of trial. It's in the public view.
Kind of
There's no hearing or anything.
It's sort of a hearing.
It's a press conference.
Yes, it is like a weird press conference. And Danny Glover gets up, bless him, and
because the owner has told him basically, like, you need to get up in front of all these people and you need to tell them you don't see angels because the stories in the papers now about how you see angels and I don't like it.
And you actually had a secondary thing where you knew what he was going to say, which is he was like, you predicted he was going to say, I prepared a speech, but I'm just going to speak off the cuff, which is exactly what he did.
Well, because he sees Roger in the audience.
Right.
Right? He sees Roger and JP and Maggie and Brenda Fricker. They've all come to support him. And he sees them and he says, I was supposed to give a speech about how I don't see angels, but you know what? Maybe there are angels.
Yeah. And then for some reason,
this is where the movie lost me.
Maggie gets up and delivers a speech.
She starts by saying,
I'd
like to say something.
I'd like to say a word about angels. Who's to say there aren't lovely angels all around us all the time? Thank you very much. Goodbye. And
can we just act out what should have happened in the movie?
Yeah.
Would you like to be Brenda Fricker or shall I?
I will. Go ahead. I'd just like to say, I believe in angels.
Ma'am, that's not how this works.
No, because I have a thing to say.
No, you don't have anything to say. That's not how this works.
Please don't remove me from the room.
No, you don't have a microphone. No one can hear you right now. This is kind of a one-way thing, ma'am.
Terribly sorry. Goodbye.
Get your hands off of me.
Get your hands off me. I'm the pigeon lady.
Which she had been at that point, right?
I feel like we're being really mean to Brenda Fricker,
No!
Oscar-winning actress, but she's extremely Irish in this movie.
The thing is, she's so talented
Yeah.
and so above it all. Like, I have so much respect for her. I feel like she would not have a problem with this.
Yeah.
Because
she can take it.
She took the paycheck.
Yeah.
I'm sure she earned every dollar they gave her, and she was not supported, and this is not her fault, and she is better than this.
Can I tell you a story about taking a paycheck that I don't know how I'm going to work it into any. It's totally unrelated, but I don't know how I'm going to work it into any other episode.
These things have to happen sometime.
Patti LuPone originated the role of Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard the musical in the West End, and she had a contract to take it to Broadway. She did not take it to Broadway. The producers of that musical, Cameron McIntosh and Andrew Lloyd Webber, broke her contract, fired her, hired Glenn Close, and Glenn Close won the Tony Award for her performance. Patti LuPone sued them for breach of contract. Patti LuPone got $1 million from Andrew Lloyd Webber. Patti LuPone has a pool at her house called the Andrew Lloyd Webber Memorial Pool, and they don't work together anymore.
It is a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful story. I love Patti LuPone. The end. I wish Patti LuPone was in this movie.
That would have been great. So she gives her speech, and then all the players who are there start chiming in about how they all believe in Knox.
Oh, they have a full "Oh, Captain, my Captain" moment. Because Tony Danza stands up and he's like, I believe in him. We're old friends. We go way back, and he's the only manager I ever want to play with, and I'm going to stand up in my support. And each ball player rises to his feet and is like, me too, me too, me too. And it's "Oh, Captain, my Captain."
I mean, the weird thing is it's a press conference, but there seems to be more representatives from the team than actually from the press.
Right. There's no press there at all.
The funny thing is, the voice of the Angels, Ranch Wilder, standing at the back.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have a seat.
Well, his role is very strange because he gets into this whole thing about he doesn't want them to win, and on air he's actively like saying nasty things about the Angels, which
Yeah.
get him fired. And it's like, why would the voice of the Angels not want the Angels to win, even if you are in a dispute with the manager? You still want the team to win. Like, he goes into just full evil cartoon villain mode.
Yeah, this movie does two things that I don't care for RE, like cartoon villains. One is him. The other thing is, and I even said this to you, I one of the things I appreciate, because they in the final game for the pennant, they're playing the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah.
And I even said to you, I was like, I'm really happy that they're not actually portraying the White Sox as like evil.
Mhm.
They're not the bad guys.
Yeah.
They're just the other team.
Yes.
And then, because so Mel Clark, Tony Danza's character,
Yep.
is pitching this final game because Knox believes in him. Oh, the other thing we find out is the Angels can't help them during the last game.
For
Reasons.
for
movie
reasons. For
reasons.
reasons.
Yeah,
I
like
think it's because Joseph Gordon-Levitt like talked to the press and he wasn't supposed to, and the Angels got
no,
scared off.
no. Christopher Lloyd tells him specifically. He says, "No, we can't get involved. Not for a pennant game.
Yeah.
Like we'll help you cheat.
But yeah,
But
when
not-
it comes to the finals, like
Yeah.
you're on your own.
We'll help you get to the finals.
Right.
And like whichever other team actually deserved to get there because they're a better team, like they just get to pound sand.
Yeah.
So there's no Angels helping them the
Yeah.
entire time. So Mel's got to pitch a game on his own. And the thing is, he's old. And as we find out,
dying.
dying.
He's looking sweaty.
Yep. And the ball club's really helping him out. And like everyone's hitting. They're lighting him up. It's crazy. So many hits. But every time there's a hit, like the fielders actually do a really good job. And like Matthew McConaughey does a good job in the outfield when he didn't at the beginning. And you know, all these things are happening, which is all very, very nice. And like I said, I really appreciated that the White Sox weren't being portrayed as evil. But then it's the final at bat of the game. The bases, I think, are loaded. Doesn't matter.
I don't know.
No, there's I think there's a man at first and a man at third. And Mel's gonna pitch, and this batter gets up, and like this guy
He's evil.
is evil. And he is hit or die Kesey. And he's got a big old scar on his face. And he's spitting out to chewing tobacco. And tobacco?
Wacky tobacco?
Tobacco. No, that's a different thing.
Oh, okay.
You know that's a different thing,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So he's evil. The other thing that's interesting about this guy, Carney Lansford, real ball player.
Oh.
Know who he used to play for?
Pittsburgh Pirates?
The Angels.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
Kind of nice. Also, apparently had like in the movie, this character has like the highest RBI of any other player in the league.
Yeah.
His actual RBI, not that great.
Oh, fair enough.
apparently,
Well,
turns out.
He had time to be in movies. He wasn't practicing baseball like he should have been, I guess.
Yep. So Knox has this chance to take him out. So like, I just didn't appreciate that there was this evil batter at this point. Like, why does he have to be evil?
Yeah.
He's just a batter. It's not the other team is not the important thing here. It's the Angels themselves getting over their shit.
Yeah.
And you know, Knox being cool to these guys and them all supporting each other and learning how to play baseball.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Yeah. So previously it had been determined because Roger is the only one that can see the Angels.
Mhm.
Even little kid can't see them. That his signal to Danny Glover that the Angels are in town was I'm gonna get you to the end of the movie.
I know, this made me want to crawl inside myself and die. I hated it.
You hated it for whatever reason.
We're different people, you and I.
I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
And you would think that I would, but
I
I didn't.
I would have.
His signal to Danny Glover that the Angels are in town is he stands up and he like flaps his wings like a seagull. Like
Real slow and
arms
dramatic.
outstretched to each side, slow and dramatic, and that's how he knows the Angels are in town.
With arms wide open.
And it reminded me of that West Wing episode where there's two things going on, but they're both about space. And Toby's brother is up on the space shuttle, and they can't find. They think he might be dead. Like they can't find the space shuttle, and the signal that everything's okay is. I can't really do this in audio form.
Like, don't even put your hands down and try to describe it.
Someone taking their right hand and slowly in a
Get the goddamn hand down.
in a diagonal motion, moving one arm from the bottom right corner of their body to the upper left corner of their body. Is that like that? Is
Well,
that accurate?
it's like miming an airplane taking
It's
off with
miming
their
an airplane
hands.
taking off with their hand. Yes, you said it much more concisely.
Yeah.
And there's
And also, just so everyone knows, I also did it for real while I was saying
you did.
it.
And so there's dialogue in the episode about like, oh, we need a signal. What's our signal going to be? And it was for something else. And then it's like, oh, this signal means this thing now. And everybody, it's understood that this signal now means one thing and the other thing. And it's a nice a nice thing in that episode.
Mhm.
The signal means two different things. And so Tony dances up on the pitch, and he's really struggling, and there's no angels. Like, they can't see any angels, and they know the angels aren't coming. And it's things seem like they're not going well.
Like, don't think Roger has told Knox at this point that, like, oh, the angels are not coming. I know they told me they're not.
And Roger's like, I gotta do something. So Roger steps forward and starts doing the angel signal, like really big, like really like, hey, the angels are here. The angels are here.
Yeah, because that's his signal to say to Knox,
yeah,
there's angels here.
But it turns out, like, because the angels have been doing this great job and have this big crowd behind them, and they've all adopted this as sort of like their cheering symbol. So he steps forward and starts doing it, and then JP steps forward and starts doing it, and then Taylor Negron, who's their minder, steps forward and starts doing it, and then the whole crowd starts doing it. And you saw this as, oh my God, this is so gross. He's lying to him about the angels being there because they're not there, and he's telling a lie. And what I said was, I feel like it's just the kind of thing that this signal means two things now. It's either the angels are literally with you, or we're all with you, supporting you, and we feel like you can do it. And it seemed to me that at the end of the movie, the signal turned into that, rather than there are literally angels behind you. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, that wasn't exactly why I didn't like it.
Okay.
I like the idea of them all doing something to show him that they believe in him.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm behind.
Yes.
I just happened to think that this particular thing they chose for the movie looked stupid.
You just didn't like the gesture.
I think it looked dumb, and it was not believable to me that all of these adults would all decide to do this. Because all the ball players get up and start doing it too.
Yeah, everybody gets up and starts doing it.
I just didn't buy it even a little. Like, this is the kind of thing that people in a movie are told to do. This didn't feel in any ways like something that would happen.
Fair enough. But anyway, he does a good job so he pitches. The guy hits the ball.
Subversion of expectations.
Hits it straight to the pitcher. Tony Danza, catches the ball, and the man is out, and the game is won. And then Coda, Danny Glover is going to adopt both kids. The end.
Both of them. And Christopher Lloyd has a weird, like, I'll see you around, and then
I'll see you in 6 months, Tony Danza.
Oh, man.
And the end.
Now that we've gotten to the end, can we just go back a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's a few things I want to make sure that are mentioned here.
Okay.
One, what'd you think of the music in this movie?
I mean, I know you hated it. Like, I know you're just setting me up to talk about it. It is your very, very classic, cheesy 90s movie soundtrack.
I hate it more than anything in the world.
Well, you recognize the composer, and you're like, I hate that guy.
Well, no, it was like before he showed up, I was like, this sounds like a Randy Edelman score,
Yeah.
and then Randy Edelman's name showed up. And I'm not even going to blame Randy Edelman. I'm going to hold him as responsible as Brenda Fricker for her accent. This is what he was asked to do, and he did it. Like, another guy I really like, Alan Silvestri, really good composer, does a lot of great stuff. He has a lot of 90s scores that all sound exactly like this, and I don't care for them.
Yeah,
so that's one thing
that's
right
one
there.
thing.
I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think this movie went a little too far with the angel shenanigans.
Yeah, because it became very obvious that something was afoot.
Right. Like, at least in the original, as you the point you made beautifully, if you were going back and watching the tape, you wouldn't even necessarily see that anyone was being helped in any way.
Right.
They just happened to suddenly be really good at baseball.
Right.
In this one, though, I feel like that kind of plausible deniability was gone.
Yeah, like the way the ball behaves defies the laws of physics.
Yeah, like there is
it had a very Flubber-like quality to it.
Yeah, that's really what it came down to. There's a joke that's not my joke, but I will say it in a moment when we talk about something else. But I feel like they definitely went too far. There's a moment in it where no, this is the thing you were talking about, where like Roger sees an angel rubbing Adrian Brody's shoulders. And so he tells Knox, you got to put him into pinch hit. He's like, he's the worst hitter. And our best hitter's about to go up. I can't do that. He says, you got to do it. The angel's get him a shoulder rub. And he goes up. And the way the angel makes him do a good job at batting is that the pitch gets thrown and the angel slows it down right as it's going over the plate. But everybody sees it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that doesn't happen.
Right.
That's not a thing that can happen.
Right.
That would be the kind of thing that would make the national news.
Right. Like if that did happen, they would probably be like, "Oh, so wind must have caught it weird. Maybe you should pitch it again or some."
Right.
Yeah, like it would be very strange.
Something's up. So then Adrian Brody hits the ball as it's going in slow motion, and he hits it like it's a grounder.
Yeah.
And then while he is running the bases, many errors happen.
Yes.
Because the ball's flying around everywhere, and all of the players are hitting each other.
17 errors on the one play, which is 14 more than the last record or something.
That was the joke that I was.
That was the joke. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I didn't mean to. Ruin your joke.
It's totally fine because
Yeah.
it's not my joke.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, no, you're not spoiling my joke. That's not my joke, but
Gotcha.
it is a joke I was going to mention. So I do think they went too far with that. As far as this movie goes, I think there's only two things we still need to talk about. One, we've mentioned basically everyone of note who's in this movie,
Yep.
save for one,
Yes.
and that is Neil McDonough,
Yeah.
who plays Whit Bass. He's one of the pitchers. Neil McDonough, not even going to name all the things he's been in. He's been in a million things. I love me some Neil McDonough. I think he always turns in a solid performance. Plays a beautiful idiot in this movie. Real moron.
Yeah.
Like
He's the pitcher.
Yeah, I've never seen him play a more broad character than this. He's great in every single scene.
He
Loved the guy.
He gets hit in the head and falls down a couple times, and
Yep.
I thought it was very funny each time.
It's pretty great. But then the other thing we need to talk about, like the movie ends and 1994's Angels in the Outfield becomes the movie.
Concludes, yes.
Yeah, and then gets released on VHS, and we all grew up on it to some degree. 15 years later or so, College Humor, they have many internet videos.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to do a parody. I'm going to link to it in the show notes.
It was pretty funny.
It's pretty great. Like, if you are a fan of this movie and you haven't seen it, you should definitely see it. And if you're finding yourself in a position to say, I want to watch Angels in the Outfield again, watch this immediately after.
Yeah.
Because they did a fantastic job. But it is a 5-minute parody of ESPN's 30 for 30 documentaries. But it's all about that season's Angels.
Yes.
And they get actors to portray like sportscasters and sports writers of the time, analyzing all the things that happened. That's where the joke about 17 errors.
Oh,
which
that was
like,
from that?
That
Sorry,
was from that.
I made a mistake.
Yeah, it was like 14 more errors than beating the other record by 14 errors.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, but there's two things that happen in it that are amazing. One is they only get 2 people from the original movie to even be in it.
Yeah.
One of them is Neil McDonough,
Yeah.
who appears in the whole thing.
Yeah, like as his character.
As his character, not only as his character being interviewed, but they also do like a green screen thing where he's like
He's testifying before Congress about doping.
Right, like when Jose Canseco was testifying,
Yeah.
he's testifying there too, and it's hilarious because Neil McDonough's one of these guys. I love him. He clearly just like slipped right back into the role.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It's really incredible. But then the other thing is the only other person who appears in this parody is the kid who plays JP.
As an adult, and I recognized him right away. He looks the same. He's great.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so it made me like the movie more. Like the experience of watching the movie became more enjoyable to me because of this parody.
It was pretty fun.
It was great. It ended up being a fun evening.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Do you want to do a quadrant?
Let's do a quadrant.
Okay, go for it.
Do you think the people that made 1994's Angels in the Outfield cared about 1951's Angels in the Outfield?
Yes.
Interesting.
I think it's hard to say. Did they care about the movie? Were they like, this particular film
Yeah.
really inspires me? I'm going to say no. But I think they did a lot of nice things to honor it. Like, like you said, like they premiered it at the Pittsburgh Stadium. And I don't think they would have done that if someone hadn't like cared at least a little bit.
That's fair. See, I was going to say I'd be surprised if most of the people who made this movie had even seen the original.
No, I think I would put it right on the line. Usually I have a stronger opinion about it.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know. It just seems like the kind of thing that people are like, yeah, that old movie, like we got it. Like you were saying before, like we got to do it.
Yeah.
We got to do it. Yeah.
We own the Angels.
Yes.
We got to do it.
Right.
Do you think it was successful?
No. Unfortunately not.
Yeah, like if this was, I just feel like if you grew up on this movie and you love it, that's great.
Yeah.
We love movies that we grew up on as well. But if you're thinking of revisiting it, I would just say rewatch Rookie of the Year instead.
Yeah. I don't even know if that's still good. I haven't rewatched it.
I haven't rewatched it in a long
time. That might not hold up either. I don't know why you would recommend that.
I'm assuming Rookie of the Year is still fantastic, and I don't want to find out if I'm wrong.
Oh, boy. All right.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads. You can find and follow me on Letterboxd. And you can give a listen to my other show, Multiplex Time Machine, all about the movies of 2007. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. Third, we are on Patreon. This show will always be free, but if you become a patron, you can get access to Adapter Parish Plus, our bonus show that releases every other week between episodes of this show, and our patron-only Slack community. It's been a lot of fun, and all the details are at patreon.com/adaptcast.
there are angels in the outfield
Are they anywhere else?
and the infield.
That's a weird way to say that.
Bye, everybody.